In this tutorial, we will have a look how we can move our Suriken between two points with perfect animation and looping. In this tutorial, we will have a look on this. And before I jump into this tutorial, I want to thank Guilherme Damasceno, Noah Sealey, braneburne for donating me on Patreon. And if you guys want to do that, you can do it on Patreon as well as on YouTube membership, and by that you will unlock many benefits. So let's dive into this tutorial. So for this we will use LeanTween. So I will head over to my Unity asset store. I will have a link in the description of this. You will see a add to my assets button right over here. So just click on that and it's gonna add. And once you are done, then click on this open in Unity, and then click on this open in Unity editor in the top bar, you can see, and it's gonna open up in it's gonna take us in Unity editor, as you can see right over here. Then select your LeanTween, and right over here you're gonna see an install button. So just click on it and then click on import, and it's gonna import LeanTween in your project. And if you're not able to find, then you can just move over to window in the top, then package manager, and in the left side you can see my assets. So just move over to that and type right over here LeanTween. So something like this, LeanTween, and it's gonna pop up LeanTween, just gonna pop up. Then select that and then click on install and then import. And once you are done, you can simply cut this step, and now we are done. As you can see, I have a Suriken in my scene view, as you can see. So let's create 2 points, because between those 2 points we want to create we basically want to move our Suriken. So let's go over to hierarchy, right click or hit this plus icon. Let's create an empty game object, and we can call this game object to something like first point. Sorry, let's call it first point. And I'm gonna drag this first point game object in the hierarchy, top of my hierarchy, and I'm gonna choose n gizmos for it. So let's go over to inspector, let's click here, and I'm gonna choose this yellow, and let's move it somewhere around here. And let's select this point, let's press down Ctrl D to duplicate, and let's call it something like second point. So this will be our second point, and let's move this a little bit down somewhere around here. So between these 2 points I want to move my Suriken. So that's why we created these 2 points. So let's create a script, and in order to move our Suriken. To do so, let's head over to this project tab, assets, right click, create mono behavior script, and you can name that script to something like Suriken or so, or you can name it whatever you like. I already created a script for it, and I have done it my script folder. And if I move over to my traps folder, as you can notice, I have Suriken script right over here. So I'm gonna select my Suriken game object in the hierarchy, and let's select that script and drag it over to add component section in the inspector. Basically attach that script to your Suriken. And now let's open up our Suriken by double clicking on it, and you can ignore all of these things right over here. So I'm gonna remove this update function, we don't need, and we will move we just gonna create a function in order to move our Suriken. So now what we need, firstly we need these 2 points, or position, so we can just move between these 2 points. And also we're gonna create a variable in order to keep track of the index of which point we are in. So which point we are in. And the third, we're gonna create a time, how much time we just want to move over to between these 2 points. So let's create those variables. So let's double click on it, let's go to top of our class, let's make a public, and this will be transform, which is responsible for position, we do know. And so since we have more than 1 points, so that's why we need to make these square brackets, basically array, and we have to name the array. So let's call it something like points. An array basically can hold up multiple values, it can be anything. So in our case we have more than 1 point, so that's why we just created this points array. And then what we're gonna do, we're gonna take this first point and the second point, and we're gonna store it into this points array. So we will have both of those points, so that's why we just created an array. and this transform just referencing position, or you can simply call it points. And the second thing we need our in order to keep track of which point we currently in, so we will create another public in, and we can call this one current point index. So let's call this one current point index, and let's close that up with semicolon. And the third argument, we need the time, after how much amount of time we just want to move between those 2 points. So let's make public float. This will be float, and we can call this one to something like time to move, something like that. And by default I'm gonna set equal to something like 3f or 3 unit. And now let's press down Ctrl S to save our script, and let's move over to Unity, because we need to assign those variable one by one. We need to select our first point, second point, and we need to drag into that points array. So we will have both of these points, and after that we can just move between those 2 points. So just wait a little moment, and once it's done we can just put our first point and second point into that array. And also we're gonna have the current point index, and by default it's gonna be 0, because we didn't set by default to any value, so that's why by default it's gonna be 0. So just wait a little moment. So once the compilation is done, we can just assign those variable one by one. So just wait a moment. So it's just taking a little bit longer time, because my system is little bit slow, so that's why it's just taking a little bit longer time than as usual. If you do have a fast system, then in your case it's gonna done within some seconds. And once your compilation is done, make sure you assign those value. So first thing just gonna pop up, and it will be our points array, so we need to assign that. So just wait a little moment, and now as you can see the compilation is done by now. And if we move over to our Suriken script, we can see points array, and it's totally empty, list is empty. So what we will do, we will select our first point, let's drag it over to this point array, and then we're gonna select second point, let's drag it over to this points array. Now we can see we have the first point and the second point, and we can also notice that first point index we can notice it's 0, and the second point index second point index is 1. Basically this bottom position index is 1, and this first or this top position index is 0. So this both of these points just get assigned with some certain index. So 1 basically means the bottom position, and 0 basically means the top position or the first point. So now we have both of these points. And also current point by default, as you can see, it's became 0 because we didn't set to any value, so that's why it's by default it's became 0. And the third thing we can notice, it's time to move, so I'm gonna leave it to 3. So we have all of this now, and let's open up our script, and let's create a variable to move our Suriken. Basically to move this Suriken, we're gonna create a variable. So to do that, let's make the function over here. For function we're gonna type void, and we have to name the function. So I'm gonna call this one move Suriken. So let's call it move Suriken. Let's make first bracket and some curly brackets. So I want to move my Surikens to the bottom position or to the second position right after the game start. So that's why I'm gonna increase my current point index by 1 before I move towards to the point. So I will say current point index plus equal 1. Basically we adding 1, so by default it's gonna be 0. So 0 plus 1 just gonna be 1. So whenever we're gonna call this move Suriken, it's just gonna increase by 1. And after that we want to move our Suriken. In order to move that, we're gonna use this dot game object, and this dot game object right over here, basically referencing that Suriken game object itself. And then we're gonna use this dot lean move function. And this lean move function, as a first argument, it's gonna take the point where you just want to move. So what we will do, we will pass our points array, and we need to make this square brackets, and you need to put the index. So I'm gonna pass my current point index, and current point index, once we're gonna call this move Suriken, so it's gonna be 0 plus 1. So basically means this current point index will be 1, means our this Suriken just gonna move towards to the second position, because the second position index is 1. We can see underneath our Suriken script in the inspector. So what we need to do, we need to type this dot position after making these square brackets, and then passing the index. And the second thing, it's going to take the time, so we will put our time to move, time to move, and then we can use this dot set is out back. You can use any of them, as you can see, to make our animation or to make just little bit cool. So that's why we're gonna use that. So set is out back, and let's make this first bracket, then close that up with semicolon. And now we're gonna press down Ctrl S to save our script, but we also need to call this function, and this function just gonna move our Suriken, as you can see. So we will call it start function in the start function, and we do know that a start function get called in the start of the game. So in the start of the game, what we will do, we will call our move Suriken. Let's make first bracket and then close that up with semicolon. Control S to save our script, and now let's move over to Unity. So that current point index will be 1, and index 1 basically means the bottom position, or basically means the second position. So as soon as we're gonna start our game, you will see that our Suriken just gonna move towards to the bottom position, or the second position, and the second position index is 1, and we can notice that underneath our Suriken script. So let's have a look on this. So just wait a little moment. Once our compilation is done, we can just go ahead and check that out. So just wait a little moment. So just wait, now it's done. And if we just go ahead, if we just go ahead and then click on this play button, you will see this current point index underneath our Suriken script. It's gonna be 1, because we calling that move Suriken function, and inside move Suriken function, we just increasing our current point index by 1, and 1 basically means the second point, means this move Suriken just gonna move towards to the point. As you can see, indeed it's done, but it's stuck at second point. So we also need to move this Suriken to the first point. So basically we need to set back this current point index to 0, and we do know that if we set back to 0, it's gonna be the first point or the top position. So let's get out of play mode, and to call the function one more time or multiple times, once it's to the second position, something over here or somewhere over here, it should call that move Suriken function itself. So it's gonna loop between these points forever. So what we will do for that, what we have to do, we basically, after setting set is out back, and if we just want to call this move Suriken function itself, then we need to use this dot set on complete function, set on complete, and then make this first bracket, and inside this bracket it's gonna take the function name itself. So the function name, we can see move Suriken right over here, so we need to type the move Suriken function. It's basically means that this function now just gonna get called automatically once we're gonna be in the bottom or the top position. So it's just gonna move between these 2 points, because this move Suriken function just gonna call automatically. But before we move, we also need to check, we basically, if we something right over here second position, then we're gonna set back current point index to 0, and we do know that if we pass 0 right over here, means our shuriken just gonna move towards to the first position. So before we move, we also want to check if our, so we will use this if condition. Let's make first bracket and some curly brackets. So what we want to check over here, we basically want to check if our current point index, if it's greater than or equal to points dot length. Points dot length basically means array length, and points dot length basically means how many points we have. So we can see that, we can notice we have 1 and 2 points. So this points dot length just gonna be 2. So we checking if our current point index, if it's greater than or equal to 2 or points dot length, then what we're gonna do, we're gonna set back current point index to 0 one more time. And we do know that if we set back to 0, then this move shuriken just gonna move towards to the first position, because the first position index is 0. So what we will do in this situation, if our current point index is greater than or equal to points dot length, then we're gonna set our current point index back to 0. So we just setting current point index equal to 0. So now let's press down Ctrl S to save our script, and now let's move over to Unity. So you will see once this once our move shuriken just gonna be in the bottom position, you will see this current point index just gonna be 0 one more time right away once our move shuriken in the bottom position. Basically we're checking if our current point index is greater than or equal to how many points we have, then we just setting back current point index to 0. And once it's gonna be over here, then this move shuriken function just gonna call itself automatically. So firstly what we're doing, we just adding 1. So current point index just gonna be 0 once we're gonna be in top position. So 0 plus 1 just gonna be 1, means our move shuriken, or that shuriken just gonna move towards to the bottom position or the second position one more time. And once it's just gonna be the second position or in the bottom position, then again it's gonna move towards to the first position, because we're checking the current point index. And you will see, so let's go to Unity, and let's click on this play button in the top. You will see this current point index gonna be 1 or 0 depending upon which point or which position we are in. If we are in the bottom, then this current point index just gonna be 0, and we do know if we set it to 0, then our shuriken just gonna move towards to the top position or to the first position. And we can see as soon as it's over here, it just move over to the first point, and once it's to the first point, it just move it over to the second point. So we can see this shuriken just moving between these 2 points, and we can take a look underneath our shuriken script, this current point index becoming 1 and 0. Once we are in the bottom position, we just setting back this current point index to 0, as you can see. And once it's 0, it just moved towards to the first position. And once it's our shuriken is over here, then we just increasing current point index 1, so that's why it's moving to the bottom position. So this shuriken just looping between these 2 position forever. And if you want, you can create as many points you want. So if I just get out of play mode, you can create a third point, and make sure you drag your third point over here into this points array as well. So this shuriken just gonna move towards to the third point as well. It's basically up to you how much point you want, or where you want to move your shuriken. You can move it anywhere you like. As many points you want, you can move your shuriken to those points. So I hope you get the idea that how you can do it.